feeling. Well, it's nice to meet you face to face. So,
Yeah,
how do you say your name? Is Camille?
Camille.
Camille. Okay, and your last name is Hita or Hita?
Hita.
Hita.
Yeah.
What is your background?
Well, I was born in the Philippines and I came here when I was 4.
Wow.
And so, yeah, we just been moving around. My stepdad was in the military, so we were on the East Coast for a bit and then settled down in the Antelope Valley. I don't know if you've ever heard of Lancaster, but
Are you in Pennsylvania?
Lancaster, California.
Okay, I was gonna say Valley sounds like California. Thanks for reaching out. Set the intention for this call right off the bat. You said you're in WFG now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So how can I help?
Well, I just wanted to get your opinion because I saw that you're doing the Financial Peace University. I thought
Yeah,
that was really cool. How is that going?
I'll show you here. I have on my planner every couple days. I'll write down do one step from FPU, which is Financial Peace University, and this is the book. This year, actually, they came out. Well, I'm not affiliated. I know it's like I'm holding it up and stuff. This this year they came out with all new videos. The book is new. This is like literally smells like ink. They took
Oh, wow.
yeah, and it took them like a couple weeks. It was on back order actually. So mine anyway. But I have cut up credit cards right here. Still have one more credit card to cut up. I'm in job transition right now. I did get a new job, which is awesome. I'm very grateful about that. It doesn't start until March, so I'm in transition right now, and I'm kind of waiting until after that to cut up my last one. I should just cut it now, but nothing's selling, so I'm like, So anyway, yeah. Tell FPU is going great. Tell me more about what you're doing with WFG.
Yeah, well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you, for even talking to me. I know you're such a busy guy. I mean, you're interviewing like really big time people, so this time with you, I really appreciate it.
I appreciate
Um,
you.
yeah, and I think that's so cool that you're being really vulnerable, talking about your student loan debt. And
Yeah,
I've been listening to your podcast. I'm like, oh my gosh,
cool.
he's got some really amazing people on here. So congratulations. I think that's really awesome of you to
Thanks.
be doing
I
what you're
appreciate
doing
that.
in work. So we're called actually Revolution Financial Management, where we branched out. And Ed Milet is actually a huge in WFG. I don't know if you know that, but he's pioneered so much of the new wave of the company. It's insane.
Wow. Yeah, I knew
Yeah.
is he still the chairman?
Yes.
Okay.
He's still like agent chairman or agency chairman or something like that. He's way up there. Like when he talks, I'm like, oh my gosh! Like I really wanted to be a mini Milet. Like I'm still really serious about that. But
For
um,
sure.
but what's cool is that just like at Milet, I can still do this job and still pursue other things that I really want to.
Hmm.
But then I still want to have my own podcast one of these days and, write
Okay.
my book. And yeah, like I want to write my book and tell my story and make it into a Netflix series. So that's one of my big
That's
dreams.
freaking awesome. So let's dive into that a little bit. You want well, I can help you with your podcast for sure.
Oh,
And
really?
send some resources over after our call as well. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I actually have I took a course that I used to pretty much go from zero to where I'm at now, and I still haven't finished the course.
Oh,
The biggest thing with anything you do in terms of starting anything new or whatever that I learned is actually a coach told me this. A guy who had a podcast years back that who I really looked up to because his podcast he's had on like I mean it's like it's ridiculous. Um, and he did a great job. And he said, as you go through the course, do each step as they arrive and don't keep watching. Because a lot of times I was prone to watch more of the video and feel like I made momentum and had progress and there's nothing being done. So he said, before you go to the next video, do the step that or the 10 steps that are in each video. And I thought that was great advice. I was very helped by that. But yeah, I'll send some resources over for sure. I think that's awesome. And I
yeah.
think, what else did you say? You want to start a Netflix series, write your book? Well, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us a bit about your story so people on Facebook, after we do this call, when I put it on there, they can learn a bit about you, Camille.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Well, since I was 15, I started working. And because I didn't really have like my parents to turn to as I was growing up, when I started working, I fell in love with it and I kind of became like this workaholic. Like I used to call myself a workaholic because I really found what being independent truly meant and like just being able to depend on myself and everything like that. And so
Mhm.
as time went on, I'm like, I love what I do, and I actually want to be a photographer since high school, and so I actually was able to pursue that. It's been 2 years now, But
Nice.
yeah, it was awesome to be like, oh my gosh, I'm doing what I wanted to do since the get-go.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, I became a young mom at 19.
Mm.
And so when I got pregnant, I was like, okay, I got to be the best mom in the world. I got to be the
Yeah.
mom that I didn't have growing up. And so my biggest thing was philanthropy work,
Wow.
to help like sex trafficking,
Oh,
um,
really?
yeah, sex trafficking,
Wow.
and then just really help the women that's been like, in really bad situations. And just growing up, my mom had some issues with the men in our life and everything like that. So I was really big on just empowering women.
Hmm.
And so I actually worked because I had to get a big girl job and provide for my family. I had the opportunity of being at Kaiser for 11 years
Wow.
as I was a pharmacy technician. And then my husband and I, it's going to be 15 years since we've been married.
Wow.
And this,
Congratulations.
yeah, I know it's been tough. Let me tell you, like,
You guys have 4 kids, correct?
yeah, we have four
Wow.
kids. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It's been insane. It's never been perfect,
Of
that's
course. Hmm.
way far from the truth. But the fact that we've been able to grow together, I mean, one of us, like for me, I've been in personal development for 8 years, so it's like, sometimes I'm running and he's like still like trying to pick up his pace. But the fact that we're still able to grow slowly together, it's still good. So I've had so many experiences in my life where I'm like, gosh, I need to tell my story and
Yeah.
be able to
Wow.
empower people, empower parents, empower relationships. And so there's so much work that I still need to do, but yeah, I really wanted to have my own business. I became an entrepreneur 8 years ago. I started in makeup and skincare. And I was like, oh, I didn't know this world existed. Like you can have your own life and you can design it the way you want to.
Yeah.
And that was for like 3-4 years. And then I was still working at Kaiser as a pharmacy technician. So then I
Awesome.
got into working out online and doing online fitness coaching,
Hmm.
life coaching online. It was so much fun. It was so great. And it really got me into this world, like
Yeah.
being some kind of value to people on social media. And I really like that. And so, but the thing is, like, I just didn't have my whole heart in selling products, like I just couldn't. It's just like, what if those companies like went out of business?
Hmm.
And so, I mean, you name it, I got every course in the book: Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest. I got YouTube courses, how to build your business. I got all these kinds of courses, but I never got one in finance. And that was the thing
Right.
that really I struggled with the most. Like, how do I make a profitable business, but then still give value and then make the money that I need to make to do the philanthropy work that I want to do around the world.
Yeah.
And then about 2 years ago, my son, we found out he's autistic, my 4-year-old, and so that became like a huge passion in my life to do help out with children development. And so it's been awesome because they want to tell his story when he graduates in a couple of years.
That's awesome.
I know, it's so cool. And then just like the whole journey, I heard Mike Rowan talk. Okay, so I don't know if you heard, but Dirty Jobs.
Oh, Mike Rowe. Yeah. Yeah.
Rogue, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
he totally shifted my mindset, and that's when I started to question if I should be in an MLM.
Yeah.
Like as a full-time career. Okay, I'm not knocking MLMs to be in my solid career.
Yeah. You got to
And
respect the hustle.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, I
Right.
respect
Right.
it so much. Yeah, and so, and I think it's smart to do something on the side. Have
Yeah.
different streams of income for sure. And so, so then when I heard Mike Rogue talk about, you it's not always about following your passion
Hmm.
because you don't know. Do you remember that interview? It blew
I didn't hear
and
the full thing, but I know he talks about that all the time, which I agree with. Yeah.
yeah, I totally like it shifted my mindset. And because people are like, yeah, follow your dreams, and you got to be passionate and follow your passions. And but the thing is, like, he did dirty jobs. He was in the nitty gritty of all of it. And he's
Uh,
like, people find opportunities and become passionate about them.
yeah.
Because they have to provide for the family, or they just love it. But you can't necessarily just follow your passions all the time. And so whenever I got into something, I just went full heartedly in it, and then I changed my mind. And so when I was when I being a photographer, I love it so much, but it just wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it was going to be, because you just become self-employed.
Hmm.
And then man, what if I leave this earth, like, or what if I can't because I broke my hand or something?
Yeah.
What if I can't work, like, and I won't make money? And so I really wanted to be a part of a company so I prayed. I said, God, what do I do? Like this, I thought I was doing what I was what you wanted me to do. Like I thought this was it. You know,
That's
they're
good.
not gonna. Yeah, they're
One of
not
the
gonna.
biggest things about your story that I picked up on is like the idea that like you become self-employed. Like there are different types of, I won't even call it entrepreneur. Yeah, like entrepreneurship, I feel like is an umbrella, and then you have under that. I mean, there's so many different ways you can take that. And one of the biggest things of a successful entrepreneur is that they are either an operator or they have hired an operator who can make the money work. So, for example, if I just do this podcast, it's a creative outlet. I'm being a creative doing it. I'm not being an operator. There's not really there. I haven't built a financial system structure around it yet to where there's income coming in because of the traffic on the podcast and because of the products that I created to serve my community. None of that is there yet. In time it will, but again, it takes time for your creative juices to flow and see what is this going to really be like. What are people really going to need from this? And so when that time comes, then I will have a product in mind that I can come to market with. But I like that because, like you said, you realize after doing 2 years of photography, it's like, you know what? Actually, it's not for me, or I don't feel I love it, but I can do this more. One of the biggest things that freed me up, Camille, is I can take a position in entrepreneurship and still,
Yeah.
work a day job or work full time, which I'm going to be doing back in March. So let's get into what questions do you have? Any questions or anything like that?
So my biggest thing is to serve people, connect with them, and make it fun. Just have fun with it and enjoy your life. But yeah, my questions were to you was like, do you? Because I heard the talk with what's her name?
Miranda.
Miranda. Yes, that was so great.
Yeah,
I
she's
love.
awesome.
Yeah, I love all that, and she's so great about sharing her story too. And it's
Mm.
like for me, I'm trying to transition to like how do I present that value on social media, because coming from the photography and the blogger, I connect to so many bloggers and travel bloggers and influencers, they say, but I'm like, how do I transition that to share more value on that? And Miranda does a really great job talking about it. And so that's where I'm at. Like what kind of advice would you give me for somebody that's like trying to transition to making that platform that with that space?
Yeah, 100%. I would say start living by systems and routines around it so that you have clarity on, okay, at Monday at 6 p.m., I spend 1 hour doing, creating a post or creating a video. Like it sounds so simple, but that's really what it is. Because until you have clarity around what you're going to do, you don't know if what you do is going to work or not. You know, you just have to know what you're going to do and put your energy into it. Because if you don't decide, then you're going to be like, well, should I do this? Should I do a video? Should I talk about my kids? Should I put this up here? Like, and you're going to be like completely drive you crazy. And that's what I've dealt with for months. And then I realized that I need to just pick something. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And being okay if it doesn't. A lot of times it doesn't work out. But you just keep adapting and changing, and then you find a stride and get some momentum. And it's just a journey the whole time. It's not like you ever have it figured out. I'm just learning social media now. There's a lot of stuff, and the more you get into it, the more you realize that other people are doing that you don't know about. And it bothers me because I'm like, oh, I didn't know about that for like a year and a half since I've been trying to grow my Instagram to expand the reach of my podcast. And, and a big thing too with personal branding, you're a humble, like very kind spirited person. So you're not somebody that's wanting to be out there like, oh, look at us, look at me. It's not about you. And you already acknowledge that. You're more so there to help. You and your husband are trying to support your family and use this to serve others. So that's very admirable. And I appreciate that in what you're doing in your approach. The thing is, though, it can be hard for people like that to personal brand. And I talked about this on an episode because I struggle with that. I don't want to put up a picture of myself. After I had a car accident in 2017, totaled my car. It was really bad. I was completely fine. I had some spinal injury, but it was fine. My point is, it changed my perspective. After that, it's hard for people like that, for people like us to actually put up personal branding content. I think your biggest move is to just capitalize on the fact that you're a family woman. You have 4 children. You said your son is autistic. Is that correct? And he's 4. So you guys are going through a lot of changes with that right now, I'd imagine. And I mean, just documenting that and talking honestly about that. And also, obviously, that's between you and your husband before you start what you put out there. But I would, so you feel completely free to do what you want to do, talk together first and say, like, where's the line? Are we going to show him eating? Like, what's the line so that you don't have any hiccups there while you're creating content? Because that's going to be stressful enough. Or energy use, it's going to use a lot of energy to create content, so you just want to have like know what you agree on, operate within that, and then feel free to free range within those in that realm. Yeah, honestly, it's your life, so if you have kids, I would be open about that. I think you are. I've seen a couple of your pictures that you put up that seem that you were a picture that you've taken professionally.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely could tell you're very talented photographer, because I was like, this looks pretty professional. I don't know if you hired somebody or if you're doing that. Yeah, for sure. So I would
Yeah.
think
Well,
the big thing that Miranda did, like you said, she was really good at it. It's because she did it. And what's funny is that a lot of us, and what we're seeing a trend on, and this is not a knock on, against you, because I'm in a similar boat. A lot of people are. Ed talks about this all the time, right? A lot of people are talking about, oh, I'm gonna put a podcast out, and I haven't done anything, and it's like,
oh
well,
yeah.
I have personally failed at a bunch of stuff, and I'm open on my podcast about the fact that I'm learning and this is my journey and I'm sharing it with the listeners. So I'm not sitting around saying like I have a $2 million business that I don't have.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. So I would be very transparent. Otherwise, no one's gonna. I mean, you know that we're all none of us are stupid. Everybody sees through everything. So I would talk honestly, like, okay, here's my friend. We're in this together, and branch out. Don't get too focused on just the people within your business, like WFG Revolution. Like branch around, like get people who are in the outside finance world, who respect what you're doing, and talk with them to show social proof that what you're doing is legit and it works. And here's an employee from JP Morgan who agrees with you. And even if that's your aunt or your friend from wherever, it's like
Yeah.
all that stuff. Really,
No,
it just
sure.
is about people who've actually done something. Because
Yeah.
to be honest with you, most of the interviews that do the best on the podcast are the ones where it's somebody who's done something, and people just want to know, how do I do it? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh, for sure. Like for transitioning from, being a photographer, and it's like, it's all about the pretty pictures and stuff like that, but that's not where my mind is either. Like I don't like all that vain stuff. And so, but at the same time, you don't want to share
Well,
a picture that we're all crying and stuff.
no, no, I don't mean that. I think pretty pictures, that's wonderful. I don't mean that. Especially like photographer. I'm not knocking. Sorry, yeah, I wasn't knocking. I have many friends who are videographers and photographers. I was more talking about personal branding, where you have to put yourself out there a lot. It can be challenging for people who don't really want the attention for themselves. That's what I meant. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. And that's how I am. I'm like, gosh, I hate getting my
yeah,
pictures taken. Like I'd rather be like eating food and like sharing that eating
yeah,
food or something,
yeah,
versus like posing. But to go off of what you said too, when it comes to like collaborating with people, like even doing this right now, I love getting to know people's stories and being able to collaborate. Like even if it's not like a paid thing, it doesn't have to be, like just talking to people and just really being able to share other people's story. Like I love that, and
yeah.
I think that's how you are able to grow your brand too, is
Hmm.
because you're supporting each other.
Hmm.
And so I think because I've been doing that a lot, like for the past 8 years, like that's how people are like, oh, Camille, you're so awesome and they're so nice and everything like that. And I've always been so supportive of my friends and their businesses and everything.
There you go.
But it's like, man, I give such good advice for them. They call me for advice, and I tell them what I think that they should do, and then I'm not doing it for myself. It's like, man,
Uh,
like, and then the whole podcast thing, like, I definitely don't want to get one until I've done some things. And that's why I feel like collaborating with people, getting to know people, and getting more in their space is more of a priority than getting the podcast just yet.
mhm.
But I definitely want to do some YouTube interviews and
Yeah.
maybe stuff there, just like have fun with it and see where it takes me. But
Awesome.
yeah, definitely, I love that. I definitely need to work on some, just do what it is that makes me happy and stay aligned with what I'm doing, because I talk about my faith a lot.
Hmm.
And so just be about it and talk about it, and then see where it goes from there. It's going to take a while to grow, for sure, but I would much rather have an authentic following than like buying my followers.
Yeah.
Because then it feels more real, and that's how I am. And so, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's good. Um, I would just encourage you, you already have done something, if you will, because you said that phrase. I mean, you're, you know, a wife, a mother of four children. Like, that's a big deal. I'm not even, like, I don't have kids. I'm not married. So I'm like way behind you in terms of like actual life stuff. So you have a ton of stuff to talk about. You have a ton of depth to you already as a person, an individual. So if you want, I mean, I would encourage you, just don't wait on the podcast. But don't be fancy about it. Gary Vee, I mean, I'm not a huge fan anymore, but he always talks, don't be fancy. Everyone wants to be fancy, and it holds everyone back, like even held me back for a long time. I literally only do my podcast because I keep it super simple. I otherwise would not be as consistent. I wouldn't be able to do one every week, and it would not still be going. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes if I'm like, all right, I'm taking this a little too serious, does it really matter if I go re-edit that again or put this song in? Sometimes, yeah, but most of the time, just don't. So you can take, like, I love that we're having this conversation because, like, tactical steps you can take or other people listening can take would be obviously Instagram DMs. Like, it is the absolute most incredible time right now. You can DM anybody and they might block you. Most people don't if you're actually reaching out to them individually. And you can connect with all these people, right? And then you can find people in your area using the local location hashtags and stuff. And you can go meet up with them at Starbucks. And if, hopefully they're not they're normal people, you could see their Instagram.
Yeah.
And then you can interview them right on the spot and use YouTube Live and plug your
Oh,
microphone. You plug your $20 microphone or $100 microphone into your computer with your USB and just use that. And then people watch it. And then, other people in your business will be like, wow, I really respect the hustle. Wow, let me go ask her this. I want to work with her. Like, you know what I mean? So you already have like everything you need. Just all it takes is like now. I like your, I mean, I'm just, that's my personal belief system now is to freaking go for it. Like, don't,
yeah.
but I get your approach as well. I think that would work as well. What other questions do you have?
How long have you been doing this? Like interviewing and like where did you start off?
I started in June of 2018. Well, honestly, the interviews started September of 2017.
Oh wow. So then
hmm
how did you get to rub elbows with like Louis Hose, right?
hmm
Hose.
Lewis House. Yeah, yeah.
Hose, yeah,
hmm
House and Ed Milet. Like how did you even like how did that even happen?
Just insane amounts of intentionality, and my day job allowed me to once April. Okay, so April of last year, Camille, I actually talked with my project manager of my job, where I work for the local power company as an independent contractor. So I set my own hours. So I was able to kind of dial back that and work really hard on just my podcast. And I did an episode on this a few weeks back on how I was like a podcaster. Now I'm a businessman with a podcast, if that makes sense. I'm going back to a full time job, this, that, and the third. But honestly, well, I won't take credit for it either. I did live intentionally, but it was God. I know you're a person of faith. I
Oh,
literally would pray with like expectant faith. I was like, you know what? Think bigger, think bigger, think bigger. And, the thing is, too, everybody is so comparison oriented. I personally never cared about who had who on their show. I think it's cool. But human psychology is a funny thing. I have friends now who I've connected with who we all have a very similar podcast. Actually, most of them are quite a few notches ahead of mine in terms of how long they've been doing it, the guest caliber, the stuff like that. Uh, and what's interesting is by putting out there, if I was just focusing on look who I got, look who I got, look who I, it's actually very unattractive to a prospective person who might want to listen because they're like, is that for you or for me? Like, I thought the interview was so that we can grow from this, not so that you can be like, oh, I'm talking with this person. Look at me. And it's just, and so many people who are even in this game right now are doing that. Not everyone, most aren't, but some are, and I find it fascinating because you're going to lose long term if that's your if that's your approach. It's like, okay, you're clearly doing this for yourself. You're going to grow, you're going to learn, but if you're doing it just to be like, oh, look at this, then it's not the right attitude, right? The fact that I prayed, I was incredibly intentional and I put myself in the rooms that these people were in, just even by going to Lewis's conference last year was really interesting. There was a lot of people in the rooms who we could provide a lot of value for each other. It was a great experience to meet them. So that's kind of how you find that the biggest there is no barrier. And once you just decide that you're also going to be a part of that, you realize that you do belong because you have been working hard and you have been putting yourself out there. You're intentional and you kind of earn your spot and you start to walk in that as opposed to being like, oh, I hope like they don't get annoyed that I reached out to them. It's like these guys actually are really genuinely flattered when you want to speak with them and learn from them. Most of them don't have time. But I learned by going to these conferences that just by taking action, you're actually in the top 10% of all these online influence entrepreneurs, all that stuff. You're in the top 10% just by taking any action. Is really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. And every time like I do just do it, it feels so much better and like you get progress as you go, you know?
Right.
And I think I think that is so brilliant just to do it and don't think about it, just do it. And because I'm a woman of faith, like I pray about it and I meditate and I'm like, okay, I want this to happen in my life. And I just like, think about that whole thing that Ed Milet talked about with the reticular,
Yeah.
the RAS,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
really like just really filling my mind up with positivity and never deviating away from God's plan and then just going full-heartedly in everything that I do. And so my husband's always like, you're too nice, you people hurt you and you could because you're so vulnerable. And I'm like, I would rather feel and be vulnerable than be like cold-hearted. And then sometimes like when I see other people making it and I'm like, wow, and they're doing different businesses and they're really rough and like they're aggressive and they're not, they think that, they're so perfect and they don't do anything wrong. And I'm like seeing that they're successful and I'm like, man, how do I like make that like that aggressiveness and that, how do I put that all together? But it's really just about just sticking with, what God's plan is and not worrying about what other people are doing and just being, if I get hurt because it's not to say that I learn from my lessons, but at the same time, I'd rather be closer to somebody, possibly, just to build that relationship versus, not even taking that chance. And so I totally agree on that. Like just doing it is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and just to touch on this is something I learned this past year is that there is a huge difference between transparency and vulnerability. You can be transparent, which is what I try to do more of, just being upfront, because then wherever you go, you're free. You can just be yourself. You don't have to care what anyone thinks because, oh, guess what? Everyone already knows I'm broke. So what? I'm not going to be for long. And you just kind of have this attitude of like, I'm real. And guess what? You're probably broke too. Or, and people resonate and they're like, oh, you're real. Okay, cool. Now I can trust you. And they laugh with you. Versus also, though, I think vulnerability, that's like different. That's where you're kind of allowing people to speak into your past hurts or your life, or sharing things that maybe are really intimate that should, are more private stuff. And actually, when you share vulnerability with, like too strongly, when there's not a group consensus, that's actually a form of like, I know you're not doing this at all, but it's called, it's actually a form of manipulation. Everyone's dealt with somebody who always tries to make people feel bad for them. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So that's the difference. Transparency in a real way is kind of an art now with storytelling on social media. And that's kind of way I look at as bad as it may sound. I do look at my posts as a business post versus even if I talk about real stuff and there is real emotion involved, I try to look at it like, how will this convert or how will this work to actually reach the hearts of people in a real way, ultimately for helping them and pushing my business forward, which is what everyone's trying to do. So there's a difference there. Something else you mentioned was trusting God's plan. Yeah. Oh man, just it is so cool. Like I realized last year, Camille, it's like God wants me to do well.
Yes.
Now that doesn't mean he's gonna want you to have a white Bentley in 3 years, and like with a trunk full of cash. It means that he wants you to do well, which may very well mean that his plan for you is that he makes you really work hard for the next, like, I don't know, the rest of your life, because he sees that it forges character and there's people watching you and your kids see you as such an example, and you know, you and your husband are able to build something together, and it's like that is what he's going, that's God's plan. Like, although it might be, you know, 5-10 years and you're very wealthy financially as well, I would say that you probably will be, but who knows. um that's a big thing. People will say, oh, God's plan, God's plan. I'm like, that may actually suck for you for a while. And it's
Yeah.
because honestly, most people, if they got what they wanted or what they think they want today, this goes for me too. This goes for me as much as anyone else. I look around and I'm like, if I think I did an Instagram live on this last week. I was like, if everyone got what they say they wanted
Oh,
today,
so good.
they would
Yeah.
become total jerks. Like, if these broke college kids got out of college and they had 500 G's in their bank account and a new car, they'd become total snobby jerks. They just would, because their character wasn't ready. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so
Right.
I'm learning that the older I get, the more self awareness I develop, and the stronger I get in my faith. I feel that God's kind of showing me, like, hey, take it easy. You don't know that much. You really need to learn. And it's just interesting because his plan is the best way, and he wants us to do well. And
Yeah. Gosh.
he knows what that looks like. So that's the thing. He knows what it looks like. I know what I want it to look like. You know. So that's the difference.
That's the difference, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like, I know that God wants me to do well because I had this desire since I was 15 to be some kind of preacher in a sense to the
Wow.
youth. And I was like, how do
Mm.
I still do this and,
Yeah.
be there for people and still serve myself and all that good stuff and be aligned with his plan. And so it's like you have all these dreams and like they don't, a lot of times nowadays it's like people want instant gratification and it's not coming true, but I mean it's not coming right away, but I think that's why God gives us these challenges because he knows that we can handle it. And so
100%.
when I said, "Okay, God, I trust you," like this one day he I felt like he told me, he's like, "Well, I trust you too. So get to work." You know what I mean? So I'm
Mm.
like, "All right, I'm
Yeah.
getting to work." And so it's been such a great journey. Like all the things that I've ever experienced, my husband's like, "Oh, you're doing another thing, what's this other thing that you're doing?" And it's at the same time, it's like I never regret anything. I'm like, I go with it, I have fun, and if I change my mind, I change my mind. And but I know that I'm getting closer to what God's plan really, like what he really wants me to do. And for a long time, before I got into this financing industry, I was like, man, like to be rich, I think that's not good. I was like, oh, rich people, like I don't want to be like rich, and then I might be bragging or something, but I don't know. Like I had this like idea in my head that being rich is not really a good idea, but then
Mm.
I was like, no, that's so dumb because like you have to be. I mean, you see the rich man getting, being able to provide for doing philanthropy work and being rich and wealthy. It's people have their own definition for it, but for me, it's like
It's
being able
gratitude.
to share it. Being able to share it and being able to like there's a verse in Proverbs that said a wise man has an inheritance for the family. I forgot which one it is, but
Yeah.
it's in the
Mm.
Bible, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's in the Bible, so cool, I'm good. I can make money and not feel bad about it, and to do the work that I want to do, I have to make X amount of money per month to do it, and I'm just because God knows that I'm ready and willing to do the work. I think that's why He presents these opportunities in front of me because He knows I'm open to receive it, and and people tell me too, like, oh, Camille, you're a super mom. You have 4 kids, and
Mm.
how do you do it all? I'm like,
Yeah. What's your, for the moms out there? What's your tips for that? You seem to be pretty high energy for having 4 children. What's your
oh.
tips?
well, I take health very seriously, but I'm not perfect, but I give myself a lot of grace. Like, if it
You're
wasn't
like
for
tucking
grace,
your supermom cape in. Oh, no, not that serious. It's not that serious.
no, it's not. It's really not. Like, I try to just have fun with it. I try not to be so hard on my kids, but I really want them to do well. And I tell
Mm.
them, get A's because that is the best. But telling as a parent, you tell your kid, oh, do your best, but then they come home with a D. It's like that's not their best. Like you have to tell them what the best is to give them the right direction.
Show them what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, show them what it is that they're actually striving for.
Okay.
And I think that as parents, like I have to be more direct. And I actually read this book called Children Are from Heaven,
Mm.
and it totally changed like the way I talk to my kids. I talk to my husband like that too. It's like not saying rhetorical questions, not asking rhetorical questions. It's more requesting something like, "Will you or would you mind taking the trash out?" or stuff like that,
Hmm.
and being respectful. Like having your partnership, or if we are married or not, like having your partner as, with your children, like that has to be really strong, because your kids are always going to love you, but if you don't have a good partnership, that is like where things start to fall apart. Because if it wasn't for my husband, like I wouldn't be able to, do the things that I want to do and change the world like I want to change the world, because he thinks it's like way over my head, but I'm like, no, I'm ready. Like, this is what I'm going to do. He's like, oh my gosh. I told him he's like, what do you want to do? And I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, I want to get a house in Nicaragua. And I said, oh, that's awesome. And he's like, what do you want to do? I said, I want to build an orphanage. But I love to dream. And it's like these conversations that I have with my kids and my husband, if it wasn't for personal development, I wouldn't be the mom that I am today. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I love all my kids and I love all my husband.
What's the book called again? Children Are From Heaven?
Children Are From Heaven. Yeah, he's the same guy that wrote Women Are From Mars and Men Are From Venus.
Oh, cool. Oh, I never heard of that book. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then, like, I have a bunch of book recommendations, but the one book that really got me was the subtle art of not giving a F.
Yeah, that's pretty got some good takeaways in there too. That's
Oh,
true.
so good. That was the first book that got me into reading, and so I was never a reader before.
Hmm.
I used to fall asleep 5 minutes in, and I'm like, oh, this isn't for me. Like, I can't be a reader. But I just been reading book after book. Another one, a good one, is High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. It's a thick book, but it's really good. And he has a journal out now too. And so my biggest goal this year was just to be a high performer with my family, as a wife, as a colleague, a friend, a sister, all that. It's like you can't, like, that's why balance is so overrated. As a mom, like, we think that we have to balance all this stuff, and even a business owner, we have to balance all this stuff, but
Yeah.
like, it's so overrated. Like, just go with what you feel is right then, and be present, like full on present. And then, don't overdo it with one part of your life. Like, just give it your all with everything and anything. But
That's awesome. You have a really inspiring story. Another proverb, actually, that they put in the Financial Peace University book, since you mentioned the proverb, it says, I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstance. And then another note here on this was last Tuesday's lesson. It said, gratitude alone, well, actually, it just says gratitude will lead you to contentment. So I'm looking at it like, I actually just watched another documentary. I shouldn't say another. I watched a documentary last week on the greed and like the like actually being filthy rich and like how miserable it can be. And it reminded me, like, everyone has 24 hours in a day. Everybody can go give now. So as much as I agree with and respect the approach of I want to be wealthy so I can take care of people, build orphanages and care for people, also in the meantime, I think I'm trying to be present, like you said, now. I feel very appreciative of the fact that I am content. It's like a double contentment. But not everyone is. And I think a lot of it can come into play when you are able to give some of your time, if nothing else, right where you're at. And that's a big thing. A lot of us, I think, get wrong. We what a shame it would be to spend 20 years trying to make bank, and you have all this time right now that you can be investing into helping somebody else build that orphanage right now, and then learn from their process, what worked, what didn't, and then when you're ready to make it, you put your orphanage out there as well, or in conjunction with them. I'm really glad that we connected on social media and that you're a fan of the podcast. I really appreciate you. And I literally make the podcast for people like you who have big visions and are wanting to give to people. It's very clear you have a generous heart. So I really appreciate you coming on. Did you have anything else that you wanted to ask us?
Well, my biggest why is to make the Hita legacy like last forever, And so as a family woman, like, it's really important to me to really hold our legacy strong and make sure that our future generations are like privileged with the wealth of knowledge, that the knowledge of wealth too. And so I think that this is so cool that you do this, and you definitely spoke to me so much, like, being, with the value that you give. And so I think that's so cool that you actually spent the time with me to do this. Like, that's so awesome of you to do this for me. I really wanted to hear from you. And I mean, that's all I really had to talk to you and see what you thought about my company. But we didn't get too much into that. But I mean, like, We
What
basically,
other questions do you have?
well, I guess, let me see.
Because you said you want to do a podcast, you want to create videos, get on Netflix. So there's some areas in between there.
Yeah, I definitely want to have my book, publish it in the next few years. Really like,
Yeah, that's what you said. A book.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, because like I want to turn that book, publish it in a few years, really tell my story. But then, like my biggest dream, which I say it every day when I read my business plan. I call it my life plan, but like you manifest like what do you want in your life. I write it out as if it already came true, and as I do that every day, it's coming true like all the time. And, like a long time ago, I was like, oh, I want my husband just to look at me like he really loves me, versus like, hey, did you do the laundry,
Well, that's
and
probably the dream of every woman. Sorry.
right? Seriously, like being married this long, yeah. And then, so when I started saying this for 2 days, I remember it so clearly. I said it for 2 days. My husband looks at me like he loves me, right? For 2 days, and then the third day, my husband turned in and looked at me because my son did something funny, and he looked at me like, oh my God, wasn't that cute? And I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
oh my gosh, that
That's
was so
awesome.
weird that happened. Maybe I was just more open to receive it. I don't know.
Right. That's a big part of it too. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, more than likely. But then I read my plan and I say like I published my book and Netflix asked me to turn it into a series, and so that's like one of my biggest things because I'm really sad they got rid of Daredevil and Punisher on Netflix. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I love superheroes and I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
I love sports, but when I do, it's sports or something about movies. But anyways, yeah, it's like that was my biggest things. And I'm like, that'd be so cool to turn it into like a Punisher with like comedy or something, like just like crazy.
What are some
I've been
action steps? When do you want to have your book written by?
by in the next 2 years for sure.
You got to pick
I
a do you have a date yet?
No, I don't. I should do it. I should maybe August. Let's do it. August 2021.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you can get it done by August of 2020.
Yeah, I really love to outsource. And so
Hmm.
my biggest thing right now is like I can't do it all and I know that. Like as a mom too, it's like and a business owner, it's like I know that I can't do it all. So I love to outsource. Like I want to hire a writer and I want to hire a virtual assistant. I want to hire a production team. I
Hmm.
want to hire somebody who can do all my social media stuff and be my coordinator for that,
So
you
what's
know.
crazy is too, like a lot of that can add up when you start listing it out.
Yeah.
Um, but if you just take action on like one thing per week or something,
Yeah.
it is so much faster and it's honestly not hard. It doesn't take that long. So just recommend that because for me, for
Okay.
example, today I actually used Fiverr again. I haven't for a while looked into revamping my logo or anything, and I was like, this I want to make this look more exciting and cool. Doesn't really have to be, but I just say, oh, here's $7. Like, let's see what they can do. Because I've in the past had great experiences with that. It took me 3 minutes. You know what I mean? So it's like maybe five. Um, and so you can also another thing is with writing a book because I want to write a book as well. I don't think my story would be anywhere near as compelling as yours, and I'm not just saying that. I'm based
Oh,
on based on what you've shared. I think that if you're able to convey that in an effective way where it touches people's hearts, I think your story will be a book well worth reading. Mine, well, I don't know. But you can take a microphone and you can basically talk into the microphone and then later someone can type it out for you, right? Like the Ask
oh,
Siri
cool.
stuff. You know what I mean? So then you can hire like a person off Upwork in maybe in America. I don't know where they'll be. But they'll be happy to transcribe that for you. And I think that that is a way to maybe expedite the process so you can get it done by August of next year.
Oh, that's a good idea. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Jonathan.
you're welcome. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, that really did. I really like that you gave me some advice too, because with the whole Miranda advice and like what to do currently and just doing it. Like I love this conversation so much. So I really appreciate the time that you spent with me.
Oh, it's so good. I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate you guys for watching this live call. And Camille, how can people follow up with you after this and they see this on the Facebook group? Share your Instagram.
Oh, I would love to connect with everybody. I love making friends. Like that's the best thing in the world. Wait, at Camille_Hita.
I'll put it in the description too, so people know how it's spelled and they could just click the link.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
love supporting. I love supporting people. I
that's
love it.
awesome.
Like I love like all this teamwork. So that's what I'm about.
Appreciate you, and good luck with everything. And hopefully we stay in touch. And
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and I'm gonna put this up on the Facebook by the end of today.
Okay.
Because
Cool.
it's not live obviously right now. This is Skype, so I'll put that up and then people can see that. and get a lot of benefit from it. So thank you so much for coming on, Camille. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you in the Facebook group.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.